All right, one last look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Tuesday morning. No accidents as of right now, so that's good. Today, high of 90 with a chance for rain in the middle of the day. Tomorrow, sunny and 89. Thursday, sunny and 92. Currently, it is 78 here in downtown Columbia. It's traffic and weather here in the game. Oh, 9 o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head flying solo with you once again. Jack Veltri will be back in coming up tomorrow morning. He was up in Detroit last night, I believe, taking in Tigers and Yankees up there. I know he's excited about that. Unfortunately for him, his Yankees end up falling 5-3 and dropping the first game of the series there to the New York Yankees. So expect having him back in here coming up tomorrow. We'll obviously get his thoughts on his trip to Detroit. Also got to ask him about what it was like going to the Canes victory parade the other day. I know he said that he and his fiance were going to go take that in after watching the Hurricanes win the Stanley Cup. So we'll get his thoughts on that, as well as putting a bow on the college sports season. Yes, last night, the 2025-2026 college sports season officially came to an end when Oklahoma ends up taking the College World Series title in game number 3 from North Carolina.
This ball is hit to left. Did he do it? Nunez, he did it just like brother. A 3-run homer to put it away. Are you serious?
Kevin Branch hits a 3-run homer in the top of the 8th inning to solidify Oklahoma's victory. They were already up 10-3 at that point in time, or 10-2 at that point in time. So it looked like it was going to be a tall task for North Carolina to stage comeback, but that was kind of the final death blow. And really cool story, as you heard them allude to there on the broadcast. Of course, the Branch brothers are one of the interesting stories of this College World Series, and Colby playing for Georgia, the team that Oklahoma eliminated last week to get the opportunity to play in the College World Series final. Colby hit a home run in his final college at bat in that game last week. Kevin gave him a high five there as they were going around the bases. And then last night, the other Branch brother ends up hitting the 3-run homer to solidify the win for Oklahoma while his brother Colby's up there in the stands watching with family and all that kind of stuff. So really, really cool story. And Oklahoma completes it, right? We talked about them being a team that not a lot of people were giving a chance going into the postseason. As we've talked about plenty of times, they dropped the last 4 series in SEC play. They end up getting paired into the Atlanta Regional with a really good Georgia Tech team that was the number 2 overall seed. They lose to Georgia Tech in their first matchup with them on, I think it was Friday of that week. They have to beat them twice. They have to come back from I think it was an 8-2 deficit in like the 4th inning in one of those games. So Oklahoma, as we talked about yesterday, North Carolina on paper definitely was the better team, definitely was the deeper team, but there's something about an Oklahoma team that just has magic and momentum on its side that can come through in big moments like they did last night with the dominant win over North Carolina. None of these games have been particularly close in the three finals here for the College World Series, and again, Oklahoma absolutely left no doubt. Last night when it came to that victory, you had LJ Mercurius that came in long relief and did a phenomenal job as he worked through those middle innings for Oklahoma last night, 5 2/3, 4 hits, only 1 earned run allowed with 5 strikeouts. He also has a brother on the team as well, so those guys, getting to share that special moment was also very, very cool. And unfortunately, it wasn't a very fun and competitive game. If you didn't really have a rooting interest either way, you wanted to be treated to a fun game. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. But again, Oklahoma left no doubt that at the end of the day, they were the best team. And it further proves that all you got to do is get in the dance, right? You get it in the dance, you give yourself an opportunity to put together a run like that, right? And for an Oklahoma team that for the first half of the year couldn't seem to find its identity on offense, well, they finally found it in the back half of the season, and they were blasting home runs left and right and driving in a ton of runs. I think they had one of the highest run-scoring averages that we've ever seen out of a team in the College World Series, and again, certainly going to help that average with 13 runs being scored, being scored last night. And it's another opportunity that North Carolina had to play for the College World Series final, to be in the College World Series, and they weren't able to get it done. Again, we've talked so much about Scott Forbes and the interest he possibly had with the South Carolina job and all that kind of stuff, and we know how good of a coach he is, but coming up just a little bit short. Now, Skip Johnson had also come up short. I think it was the Ole Miss year when they won the national championship that they beat Oklahoma in the final there. So Skip Johnson had come close, finally able to get the deal done last night, and Oklahoma wins their 3rd national championship in baseball and does so in very much dominant fashion. And they keep the streak going, 7 straight national championships for the SEC, being done with 6 different teams. LSU, the only one that's been able to repeat during that time frame. And thankfully, if you're rooting for this, the SEC is not going to get shut out when it comes to major titles in the 25-26 calendar season. They lost football to Indiana. They lost men's basketball with Michigan. They lost women's basketball with UCLA. They did win softball with Texas, but in terms of like the big 4 that people pay the most attention to, the SEC had not hoisted a national championship yet. And last night was obviously a big get for them, and obviously continues to show that they are the conference to beat when it comes to baseball, right? And we know very well here, being in a town like Columbia that embraces and loves baseball as much as it does, that these fan bases really lean into this. These fan bases really have a passion. They know what good baseball looks like, and they show up and show out when they get their opportunity to ultimately support those teams. So that puts a bow on it. Again, we're 74 days away from South Carolina kicking off the season, and we'll talk about the number 74 coming up here in just a few minutes. So I guess that would make us 67 days away from Week 0 football on that last weekend there in August. So still a little over 2 months away before we get actual college sports going. But it was a lot of interesting things that happened over the course of this year, again, between the respective sports, the championships being dominated by the Big Ten and all that stuff. But again, at the end of the day, the SEC avoids getting completely shut out in those major titles, with Oklahoma picking up the victory last night. And again, I think it further proves that you don't have to be the best team. I mean, most people would argue that, hey, Georgia was probably the best team in the SEC by winning the regular season, by winning the SEC tournament. But when they got into the postseason, they couldn't handle a team that was as hot as Oklahoma was, and obviously ended up having to play them twice, losing to them twice, going all the way back to the end of last week. So you don't have to be the best team. You just have to be the team that's playing some of its best baseball when it really counts, and that's exactly what Oklahoma did last night. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if they're once again in the mix coming up next year. It's always fun, and again, I don't have a rooting interest either way in terms of wanting Oklahoma or wanting North Carolina to win, but it's always cool to see the emotions, right? And for a fan base like South Carolina that has experienced that high of winning a national championship, you know what that feeling is like. You know what those fans, you know what those players, you know what those parents and friends and family and all that kind of stuff are going through. And it is neat when you watch these things, especially when you have a blowout like last night was, where it's not a nail-biter coming down to the very end, and Oklahoma can really kind of take it all in, right? They knew by the, really before they even got to the 8th inning, but especially after they put up the 4th spot in the 8th inning to make it a 13-2 game at that point in time, that they were probably going to win the national championship. So you see the players, you see the families and all that kind of stuff really kind of soaking it in and taking the moment of winning their first national championship in terms of that team, those players, and all that kind of stuff, even though Oklahoma had won 2 prior ones, with the most recent one being back in 1994. So, again, that wraps up what was a fun and interesting sports year when it comes to college sports. We can maybe put a little bit more of a retrospective on it coming up tomorrow. We'll get Jack's thoughts on what he saw in the College World Series in the final and all that kind of stuff, and really kind of reflect back on, okay, here's what we saw in the college football playoff. Here's what we saw in March Madness, the women's tournament, and obviously what we've seen with all the chaos in the baseball tournament as well. So you got a little bit of everything, I felt like, this year. And while Oklahoma's not like an upset or a big shock, right? It certainly wasn't a team that people looked at as a favorite going into the postseason in terms of being able to win a national championship. But again, and here's hoping that South Carolina is going to be playing that field of 64 coming up next year. You don't have to be the best team. You just have to be a team that's playing its best baseball when it really, really matters. So you can be under 500 in conference play. You get them a spot in the dance, like with Ole Miss a couple years ago being the last team, one of the last teams in. You can go on that kind of run and obviously end up winning yourself a national championship. So congratulations to Oklahoma last night for winning that thing. And again, we're only a little over a week away now. I guess middle of next week on the next Wednesday will be when we turn the calendar over to July 1st and thus start a new calendar year when it comes to college sports. That'll be the start of when South Carolina officially switches to Nike. I know Jeremiah Donati had his little note and thanks to Under Armour and all that the other day. So we'll hopefully start learning about some of those uniforms and what these South Carolina teams are going to look like this upcoming season as we get into the month of July and then to get to media days and all that kind of stuff coming up at the end of next month, and then we're full steam ahead to football getting here. So unfortunately, outside of women's basketball, you didn't really have a lot of teams involved in these postseasons, but the tournaments were fun. Again, I thought the college football playoff was fun. The NCAA tournament was fun. Again, the women's tournament had some interesting things up until the very end there. And then the baseball tournament gave you a lot of surprises, a lot of upsets and those kind of things. So that's all you can ask for as a fan when you don't have a dog in the fight, to be treated as something interesting and entertaining. And I think that's what we got when it came to the NCAA baseball tournament. So the next time we're talking about college baseball being played, it'll be with Kevin Schnall at the helm for South Carolina coming up sometime in mid-February next year. I don't know, with the Super Bowl being on Valentine's Day, if that's going to affect when the baseball season is going to start for South Carolina or not, but sometime around there, we'll get to see the beginning of the Kevin Schnall era, and here's hoping that this time next year, we're at least talking about South Carolina having at least taken part in the NCAA tournament. If not, maybe, who knows, making a deep run in it. But a lot of time between now and then, we're still watching the roster being built. We'll get into that coming up a little bit later on in the show, as Kevin Schnall hard at work for outfitting and figuring out what his team is going to look like in his first year in 2027. And again, we're plenty of reason to be excited about the guys they've brought in so far. But coming up next, it's 74 days until kickoff. We're going to talk about the number 74 and who's wearing it right now for South Carolina. That's coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you, flying solo on your Tuesday here on The Game.
All right, everyone, as we close out the first hour here, let me tell you guys about AAA Heating and Air, where home comfort is their top priority. Give a call today at 803-677-1500 to schedule a seasonal maintenance appointment. Let AAA Heating and Air's qualified technicians put your mind at ease with a thorough inspection and cleaning of your heating and cooling system. Join their popular AAA Comfort Club to take advantage of special extras like flexible visits, added discounts, and priority scheduling. AAA Heating and Air also offers indoor air quality products that work with your HVAC system to improve your home's air quality. Cleaning the air eliminates common household odors, removes allergens and pollutants, and can even improve sleep and reduce the spread of some viruses. So go to callAAAtoday.com for more info. Again, that is callAAAtoday.com for more info. Tell them Jack from 107.5 The Game sent you on over.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. Flying solo. Chris Clark will join me in the 10 o'clock hour. Wes Mitchell will also jump in the 11. And again, Jack set to be back coming up tomorrow. So excited to hear from him and catch up on everything that he and I have missed talking about in the past week and a half. Again, I was out all of last week with my trip to D.C. So I hadn't seen Jack in a little bit, but excited to catch up on all that. And tomorrow we'll be counting down 73 days until South Carolina starts its football season. But today is the number 74 until Carolina and Kent State square off on September 5th. And it's probably going to be a very, very hot afternoon at Williams-Brice Stadium. And, of course, number 74 currently on the roster pertains to one Josiah Thompson. One of the names that if you've said it in public in the past 2 years, basically, people are going to have an opinion, right? I don't think there's too many people that are just neutral on how they feel about Josiah Thompson. Some people may like him. You did see some promising things in his freshman year. What freshman All-American or All-SEC, one of those things. Now, again, not a lot of freshmen played the left tackle spot, so he did have some bumps in the road and learning curves and all that kind of stuff. But you thought that maybe that was something to be optimistic about going into the 2025 season, and he just completely took a step back. And he was kind of the poster child for what were many of the issues on the offensive line for South Carolina last year. Now, again, we did end up learning, and we'll know, obviously, now that he's not going to be playing this upcoming season because he was dealing with an injury late last year, so perhaps that contributed to some of the struggles that he did have. But regardless, even before the injury and all that kind of stuff, Josiah Thompson very clearly took a step back from being a freshman to being a sophomore. And when you're playing an important position like left tackle, and again, had the experience as a freshman, you're expected to take those steps forward in year number 2. And he obviously didn't end up doing that, to where I think a lot of people, if you asked him, said, hey, how do you gauge Josiah Thompson's career at South Carolina so far? I think a lot of people would say it's largely disappointing, right? Here's a guy that came in with a ton of hype, high star rating and all that kind of stuff, and was supposed to be that anchor of the offensive line, and he just went in the complete wrong direction as he got seemingly more and more experienced. And I think Josiah Thompson is kind of the prime example that people look at in terms of what the issue with Lonnie Teasley was and why Lonnie Teasley is no longer the offensive line coach here at South Carolina. As we've said so many times, even up until when they fired him, like, man, the guy can recruit his butt off, right? He's brought in so many great and talented players, not just offensive linemen, other players as well. So he had this recruiting prowess, which is great to have, but when it came to him actually developing his area of expertise, his position group with the offensive line, it just wasn't happening. And there's so many guys that, again, came in pretty highly rated and just struggled, took steps back, or just didn't make positive leaps forward. And that ultimately comes back to your position coach, and that being Lonnie Teasley was why that he ends up being moved on from at the ending of, or not even at the ending of last year, before last season ended, because things were just going as bad as they were for South Carolina's offensive line. Was it after the A&M game? I don't remember. It was towards the end of last year whenever they did ultimately decide to move on for him, and obviously bring in a guy in Randy Clements now, and the unfortunate thing is we don't get to see Randy Clements get his hands on Josiah Thompson right away, right? Like Thompson, it didn't surprise anyone when he ultimately went out and decided to test the waters of the transfer portal. What he was expecting to get in the transfer portal, I don't know. We kind of marked it up when he decided to come back that, hey, he could be out there asking for 7 figures, and nobody's willing to do that because of his track record and results here at South Carolina. Regardless, he ends up coming back out of the portal, which is fine. And as Beamer talked about when it happened, not every guy is going to have a guaranteed spot, to come back when they ultimately decide to put their name in the portal. But there's belief in Josiah Thompson, and I think that's fair, right? Like, this is a guy that has a lot of high upside potential. He just happened to be paired with maybe a not so great offensive line coach, and I think we were all excited to see, like, okay, here's another offseason of development. If he gets in there with Randy Clements, what can Coach Clements do with him to maybe get the best out of him? Of course, we're not going to see that now, at least not this upcoming year, because of the injury that Josiah Thompson is ultimately dealing with. But assuming he stays around, for 28 and beyond, and we'll get that opportunity following this upcoming season, or 27 and beyond, get that opportunity following this upcoming season, then I think we're all excited to see what he can ultimately do when it comes to being better. Now, I don't know if that's going to be at left tackle or right tackle. Certainly, if you were going to play this upcoming season, it seemed like Jakarius Peak had the left tackle spot unlocked, but thoughts that Josiah Thompson could potentially be in that mix for that right tackle spot if he was indeed healthy enough. But again, we're not going to know until at least next year when it comes to comes to what he's going to be capable of and what kind of development this new offensive line coaching staff can get out of a guy like Josiah Thompson. So now that we've obviously going to have to not see him play on the field this year, you bring in Jakarius Peak, right? Jakarius Peak, one of the most sought-after left tackles in the transfer portal. I don't know what South Carolina paid him to come here. I imagine it wasn't cheap. He's getting a lot of buzz and a lot of hype for the NFL draft and thoughts of potentially being a first-rounder and all that kind of stuff. And if he ends up being that good, then South Carolina should hopefully have a good offensive line this upcoming year, because when your left tackle is holding down the fort, you hope that everybody else kind of falls in line, behind that. And as I've said so many times, when it comes to South Carolina's offensive line, they don't have to be phenomenal, right? They don't have to be the best offensive line in all of college football and, being finalists for the Joe Moore Award and all that kind of stuff. Can you be better than last year? Can you cut your sacks in half? I think they gave up 43 a season ago. Can you give up 24 or 25? That's a whole lot better. Can you keep, Lenore Sellers from running for his life, right? Give him time to get sit back there and throw, or let the play develop and use his legs and those kind of things, because that was the issue a season ago, is he was under so much duress, and it was also coupled with the fact that you had an offensive coordinator that was making him kind of overthink things seemingly a little bit, that it just ended up being a perfect storm of everything going wrong and the offense not being able to be successful. Because if you have a good offensive line, you have protection on the quarterback, you have the ability to run the football, and it opens up your playbook in so many ways. And again, I think, like so many things, this fan base is always going to be in a wait and see type of mode, but I've seen a lot of optimism. I've seen a lot of people excited about what they've done and the changes, not only with Randy Clements coming in, but also the new bodies in the offensive line room and all that kind of stuff, saying, okay, these are the things that needed to be addressed. These are the things that needed to change to make this unit better. And again, we'll find out starting in 74 days if it is indeed better than it was a season ago. Kent State and Towson probably won't tell us a whole lot, but as we'll get into our opponent preview for Mississippi State in week number 3 coming up here in a moment, that will be the first true litmus test. Okay, did this offensive line get better? And if, they're protecting Sellers and allowing the backs to get runs off and that kind of stuff, then we'll probably, hopefully, be in pretty good shape. But again, we have to wait, because 74 days till kickoff now. So when you add 14 days to that, that's at least 88 days before South Carolina plays that quality opponent. That will give us an indication of how well they're going to match up with teams in the SEC, and obviously Clemson coming up at the end of next year as well. So there you go. 74 days until kickoff. Josiah Thompson, number 74 for South Carolina, even though we obviously won't see him until at least the 2027 season. But in the meantime, a lot of football to be played in the 2026 season. We'll continue on with our opponent preview, looking at the Mississippi State Bulldogs, Carolina's opponent in week number 3, coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you on your Tuesday on the Game. right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. We started our opponent previews for the upcoming season. Again, we're just 74 days away from Carolina squaring off against Kent State for game number 1. We talked about Kent State and Towson kind of together yesterday to start this off with, and I didn't want to, try and pull the wool over your eyes and present like both these teams as really scary propositions for South Carolina that they're going to have to really, really worry about. Now, again, as I said yesterday, I was in, Willie B for the Old Dominion game. I was there for the Jacksonville State game in 23. I know what's happened in the past, teams like the Citadel and stuff like that. So Carolina is not absolved from playing tight games or losing to teams like that. But I look at what Carolina's roster is, and I don't think they should have problems with either one of those two teams to start the season. And really, as we go to a ninth conference game, and you knew that with the Clemson game being at the end of the regular season, that the next 9 games for South Carolina were going to be all SEC opponents. And there's a lot of teams that Carolina could have ended up squaring off against, but I think most people in this fan base would say Carolina got a pretty good draw in terms of who their first SEC opponent is in the 9-game era, that being the Mississippi State Bulldogs, who do have to come into Williams-Brice Stadium on Saturday, September 19th. So that'd be 88 days from now, I guess. 14, so 88 days away from now when Carolina starts officially conference play. And then we'll start to learn about South Carolina and what they are, because, again, if they handle business against Kent State and Towson, those should be lopsided games that don't tell us a ton about what this team is. They're just kind of, padding stats and all that kind of stuff. But Mississippi State, Alabama, Kentucky, Florida, the first 6 games Carolina has on the schedule, those games will really give us an indication of what this team's capable of and what their potential is for this upcoming season. So with Mississippi State starting the conference slate for Carolina at Williams-Brice Stadium, what do we know about this Mississippi State team? Well, we know that last year they were a 3-win improvement over what they were in year 1 under Jeff Lebby. And look, Jeff Lebby took over a really, really difficult situation, after the 2023 season. Of course, at the end of 2022 is when Mike Leach ends up passing away. Mississippi State makes what seems like the logical next step and just promotes defensive coordinator Zach Arnett to being the head coach. He was the head coach when they came in here back in 2023, but that was a bad season, and he ends up being a one and done. Funny enough, he is back as the defensive coordinator now, because it is funny how those kind of things work out sometimes. But regardless, Jeff Lebby, who again had been a long-time offensive coordinator, worked at Oklahoma, and done those high-tempo, high-scale offenses and stuff like that, got his first opportunity to be a true head coach. In the first year, they struggled. They won 2 games out of the 12 that they played, and last year was a significant step in the right direction. They won 5 games, and ended up playing in a bowl game as well, so they ended up going 5-8. But you can make a really, really strong argument that they really should have won other games, because they played some really good teams all the way down to the wire. Remember, they beat Arizona State. Arizona State coming off of the college football playoff appearance the year prior. They came into Davis-Wade Stadium, and Mississippi State ends up beating them in that game. Then a couple weeks later, they take Tennessee into overtime. That game is one that was a really entertaining, fun game that went back and forth, and Tennessee ends up escaping with the 7-point victory there. They play a tight game on the road at Florida, only lose by 2 points. They take Texas to overtime after that. They just played a lot of really competitive games where you could have easily seen them being a 6, maybe a 7-win team, as opposed to a team that just won 5 games like they did, last year. So they're taking big strides, right? Like that 3-win improvement, and darn near could have been 4 to 5-win improvement from year 1 to year 2, is significant. And the good thing about Mississippi State and Jeff Lebby is they're given time, right? And I know that Dan Mullen had them as the number 1 team in the country in the first ever college football playoff, top 25. But for the most part, the demand for what Mississippi State football is going to be is not insanely super high. So they knew they were going to be able to give Jeff Lebby time to really kind of figure things out, get his feet underneath him, and start producing good teams. And that's what they were able to do by taking that step forward from a season ago. Now, they lost a lot of players in the portal. Mississippi State, for 2 years in a row, has lost 34-plus players each time, lost 34 at the end of the 2024 season and lost 40 at the end of the 2025 season. So they're a team that unfortunately gets used as a stepping stone a lot for players that end up going and playing at other SEC schools and stuff like that. So they're having to once again kind of overhaul the roster, and they do have some significant guys returning who we'll get to coming up in a moment, but there's a lot of key players and skill players and stuff like that that are brand new to Starkville, Mississippi. They lost 6 wide receivers in the portal this offseason, which is for any room's depth is obviously really huge. They also lost their 1,000-yard receiver, Brennan Thompson, to the NFL as well, though they did go out there and get Marquise Johnson from Missouri that is speedy and can come down with catches to maybe supplement what you're losing with Brennan Thompson there on that offense. They also brought in 8 new offensive linemen as well. This is a Mississippi State team that shockingly was actually even worse than South Carolina when it came to their offensive line play. They were 133rd in total sacks allowed season ago, I believe, with 45. There's only 136 teams in FBS, so they were atrocious in that regard, and that's something they're looking to address and try and get better in this offseason as well. As far as their quarterback situation goes, Camario Taylor, redshirt freshman, got the opportunity to start a couple games at the end of last year, the Egg Bowl against Ole Miss, and then the bowl game they ended up playing in the Dukes Mayo Bowl when they took on Wake Forest. And in that game, he is kind of up and down when it came to passing. Completed under 50% of his passes, completed about 59% in the bowl game, and completed under 50% in the Egg Bowl there. 1 touchdown, 1 pick between those 2 games. But the thing everybody's talking about was what he did on the ground, particularly in the Egg Bowl. Ran 20 times for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, last year, when they had Blake Shapen at quarterback, again, a guy with a really good arm, but he wasn't somebody that was necessarily mobile. So Camario Taylor offers a different dynamic into that Jeff Levy offense because he has the ability to use his legs. He's just relatively unproven in the college ranks so far. And that's kind of the only 2 games of sample size we can really go off of in terms of what to expect out of him and how good he can end up being. So that's going to be something to deal with in week number 3. But here's what's interesting. As Carolina opens up its season against 2 Group of 5/FCS teams in Kent State and Towson, Mississippi State goes to Minnesota in week number 2. They go on the road into a Big Ten team that's probably more on par with them. So it's not like they're going and playing Michigan or Ohio State or something like that, but a team that's somebody that you think that they can be competitive against. Regardless, it's a quality opponent, and you're going to get a real good look and a real good sense of what Mississippi State is capable of because of that game. You're going to get good tape on them. You're going to get to really see what they're doing with Camario Taylor and all that kind of stuff because, you don't really want to hide secrets in a game like that because that game's important to win, and that will hopefully give South Carolina the opportunity to really put together a good game plan when they do end up taking on Mississippi State. As I said yesterday, I really hope that for Carolina's sake in the first 2 games between Kent State and Towson, they stay healthy. Right, so Carolina, potentially if you end up blowing out both these games, you may go into game number 3 with, most of your starters not having played an entire 4 quarters, so they're fresh, they're rested, and, Mississippi State coming off more of a physical contest against a quality opponent could prove to be beneficial for South Carolina, and hopefully it will be. These are 2 teams that, and again, Mississippi State ended up with more wins than Carolina a year ago. These are 2 teams that I think people largely kind of group together when it comes to the SEC. Saying, okay, yeah, they're probably somewhere between that 10th to 14th-ish range in conference play. So you have the ability to beat a team like you in a lot of ways if you're able to beat Mississippi State. And again, if you win that game and get off to a 1-0 start in conference play, that's momentum you can take into playing Alabama and Kentucky and Florida and all that kind of stuff. And again, when you look at the way the schedule sets up, I think most people would say it's pretty favorable in terms of how South Carolina got the draw when it came to the teams in the SEC and who they started off with Mississippi State. Now, all that being said, we always have to put this caveat out there when it comes to the new age of college football. maybe Jeff Levy enters into his Kurt Signetti era. Maybe all these guys got out of the transfer portal are superstars. Maybe Camario Taylor ends up being the best quarterback in college football and ends up winning the Heisman Trophy and all that kind of stuff. I'd lean towards probably not, but again, you never truly know. So, and that'll be a common theme when talking about these teams. We continue to do our opponent previews that, hey, maybe that team finds the lightning in a bottle and goes on a historic run, has an incredible season, crazy season, or whatever it may be. So not necessarily a layup and not necessarily a guaranteed win. I do think, though, and I look at the talent on the roster between South Carolina and Mississippi State, and I do think Carolina is a more talented team, which I think we're going to say a lot, especially with some of these early games that South Carolina does have. But again, I think it's a great team to start off conference play against, and hopefully Carolina gets off to that 3-0 start and before they head off to take on Alabama, again, the team that we'll talk about tomorrow as we continue on with our opponent preview. We'll come back, wrap up hour number 1. A college baseball tradition ends for another year, and there's a new champion in town. We'll talk about it coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you here on your Tuesday on the Game. Welcome back in. Extra Point. It's out ahead, wrapping up hour number 1 on your Tuesday here on the game. Again, Chris Clark will jump in here with me at the top 10 o'clock hour. Got to talk EA Sports college football. Where's Carolina and Williams-Brice Stadium when it comes to toughest places to play in this year's edition of the game? And we had a dive in to everything that happened yesterday with Dusty May as he departed Michigan for the Dallas Mavericks job in the NBA. And there's a lot of layers to that. A lot of things that have kind of come out the past 24 hours in terms of his thoughts and feelings on the current state of college sports, and we'll let you listen to some of that and discuss it coming up in the next hour. But, of course, last night we saw the end of the 2025-2026 college sports season. What started off with, I don't know, is it soccer that starts playing in like mid-ish August? Then college football comes right after that, culminates with game number 3 of the College World Series last night, with Oklahoma taking the victory 13-2 over North Carolina. Again, 3rd overall title for Oklahoma in their history, first since 1994, though. So none of the players on that team were alive or even close to being alive when it came to the last time Oklahoma had achieved those heights. So we'll see how they respond to this and how consistent Oklahoma is going next year and all that kind of stuff. But what also came to an end yesterday was one of the best, if not the best, traditions in all of college sports, and that was the Rocco's Jello Shot Challenge out there in Omaha. Of course, we're all familiar where the 8 fan bases that make up the College World Series can go to Rocco's, buy Jello shots, and add to the tally of their team and try and see who comes out on top. A lot of the proceeds end up going to local food banks and stuff like that. So it's all done for a good cause, and one of my favorite follows this time of year in terms of seeing what teams end up coming out on top and the battle and all that kind of stuff as the week ends up going on out there in Omaha. And I guess it shouldn't come as a surprise that West Virginia, making their first ever trip to Omaha in the College World Series, never know when you're going to go back, never know when you're going to get that opportunity again, ends up smashing everybody else, winning with a total of 28,221 Jello shots there for the West Virginia Mountaineers. Let's see, I believe Oklahoma's in second with 15,009. It looks like Ole Miss in third. No, excuse me, North Carolina in third, Ole Miss in fourth. Then it's Troy, Georgia, Alabama, and Texas, I believe, if I'm reading this correctly. Again, they don't write it out in terms of who's leading and stuff like that. It's just from top down, all the 8 teams there. But West Virginia's at the top of the board in terms of the first team to clinch their spot in Omaha, and they went out there and just drank the Jello Shot Challenge dry, seemingly. I didn't think it was shocking that West Virginia ends up winning this, because, again, for one, that is a state that knows how to drink, right? They if you're coal miners and stuff like that, you have some hard days out there of work. And I think everybody knew coming into this thing that they were going to put a serious dent into this Jello Shot Challenge, and despite getting eliminated, when they did, they end up still winning the whole thing and end up winning by, again, at least 13,000 over Oklahoma, who ends up coming in second. So really cool to see. Again, neat to see how the West Virginias and Troys and fan bases like that don't get to have never experienced this before. Georgia hadn't been in 20 years, so there were a fan base that wanted to make a statement if they could as well. But again, no shock and no surprise that West Virginia ends up coming out on top, and we'll see. We'll see what next year's look like. Again, the unique thing about this year's Field of 8 when it came to the College World Series is none of those teams were the same ones from last year. In fact, North Carolina was the only one that's been in the prior 2 seasons. I believe made it in 24 and missed it in 25. So you're getting new, fresh crop of teams. Again, some that hadn't been there ever before and some that hadn't been in a long while, taking over Omaha out there and making it really special and showing off the best of what college baseball has to offer. And again, I look at this as maybe one of my favorite traditions, and not just college baseball, but all of college sports as well, because it perfectly encapsulates what Omaha is. And if we got a lot of people from other countries coming into America right now for the World Cup and stuff like that. I hope at least some of them have been able to make their way through Omaha to experience all that. Because I don't know if the European mind cannot comprehend it, right? Like that joke from a while back, because that's a lot to take in. And again, the Jello Shot Challenge is the perfect embodiment of what makes college baseball special, what makes the fans great, and all that kind of stuff. And really cool to see a new champion in West Virginia come away with that crown there in their first ever trip out there to Omaha. Again, now we're in the off season. Again, we're watching what Kevin Schnall's doing in the transfer portal and building his roster and all that kind of stuff. And I guess we're 8 months away from seeing the next baseball season. We'll have fall ball and stuff like that. And of course, guys like Jack and John Whittle and all them, Jimmy Bradford will be on top of what's happening with this baseball team as they go through and understand what this new era is going to be for Gamecock baseball when it does end up rolling around coming up in February of next year. But again, it was a fun season of baseball, even though Carolina was irrelevant the entire time. You got your head coach that you wanted now, and now we wait. We see what the roster build continues to look like. We'll get into some of that later on in the show and continue to wait and see what the new era of Gamecock baseball is going to look like, and see if maybe South Carolina fans can get their opportunity to make a run at the Jello Shot Challenge here in the next couple years. Especially with how long it's been, I don't deny that a lot of you, if given the opportunity to go out there to Rocco's and represent USC and the SEC and all that kind of stuff, would do some serious damage. Again, you got to get there first. But our hope and anticipation is that Kevin Schnall is the guy that's going to lead this program back to that promised land that we've been waiting for the better part of 15 years now. And obviously, we'll start to see what happens with that coming up in February of 2027. So again, hour number 1 in the books here. We'll get into hour number 2, and where did EA Sports put South Carolina on the list of toughest places to play for College Football 27 that's supposed to be coming out here in the next couple weeks? They're always kind of around the same area, but what number did they get this year? And always got to see who number 1 is, though I think most of you can kind of figure out who number 1 is. But regardless, we'll discuss all that and plenty more, including the Dusty May stuff coming up in hour number 2 as we get into the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. Chris Clark will jump in here with me, and we'll chop it up on all things going on, not only in Gamecock sports, but as well as all of college sports, too. So it's coming up in hour number 2. It is The Extra Point. It's our head along with you on your Tuesday here on The Game. 10 o'clock. Welcome back in. Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. Tyler Chris Clark along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. Chris, at the end of that last hour, I discussed the Jello Shot Challenge at Rocco's out in Omaha. West Virginia wins with flying colors, 28,000. Next closest was Oklahoma at 15. And I said I wasn't shocked by that. You got a state that is well known for its ability to drink, and a fan base that had never been there before and quite frankly doesn't know if they're ever going to go back. They made the most of it.
Yeah, great performance by them. Wow.
And they've been out for multiple days.
More impressive, West Virginia winning the Jello Shot competition or Oklahoma coming in with a losing conference record and just running through everybody at the College World Series.
Is that shocking? Like, are we really like jaw on the ground? Oh my God, I can't believe Oklahoma did that.
No, neither of them actually are that surprising. I think the West Virginia Jello Shot Challenge is probably, although remember we did a buy or sell a while back, and
Yes.
I thought that Ole Miss would hold serve. No, they weren't there as long, right?
No.
But still, they could have stayed in town,
Did Troy eliminate them?
taken one for the team. Yeah, Troy did.
Yeah.
So it didn't have quite as long, but no, Oklahoma, I mean, we were talking about that yesterday before the game, and I kind of thought, some people asked me, I picked North Carolina. I thought they would get it done, but I'm not sitting here, like you said, jaw on the ground about Oklahoma. 5 SEC programs ended up making it to Omaha, and Oklahoma might not have been the one that you picked. If you said, hey, you got to pick one of these to make it through, they would not have been my pick. But, when you go through, first of all, you go through the SEC, we always talk about being battle-tested, and, some people may roll their eyes. There's a lot of people out there that, you're such an SEC homer. I mean, just look at the conference, though, and how good it is in baseball. Even if you think the football, strength is overstated, or basketball, or name your other sport, like, objectively,
Yeah.
SEC baseball is really, really good. And, so even though they come in with a losing conference record, you can kind of go through and look at their season and, okay, they got hot. We've seen, I mean, you just mentioned Ole Miss this year. Remember Ole Miss when they won the title in, what was that, 2022?
Beat Oklahoma to do it, I believe.
Yeah. And, Ole Miss, they had kind of limped to the finish line a little bit in the regular season, but then they got hot. And that's what it's about. Can you build a team that can do enough to get you into the tournament, get you a draw in the tournament that is not super unfavorable, and then just get hot at the right time, And we were comparing, I mean, Wes brought up this point last week, I think, when you were out. The South Carolina 2010 baseball program, I don't think many people were going, yeah, that's the team that's going to win it.
Yeah.
You had, even UCLA, even the championship series, UCLA and South Carolina. South Carolina had made it to the title series, but it was like the announcers were completely unprepared for any other outcome than UCLA winning.
Right.
It was crazy. Like, I still remember thinking that in the time, and there was a big topic of conversation among Gamecock fans. Like, wow, giving them no chance. Even that team, though, was, what did I say yesterday? 22-9, something like that in conference. Like, they had the conference has gotten harder since that time.
Sure.
Like, more teams have invested. There's not just, here's a few good SEC teams. Like, almost everybody is pretty darn good in this league. And so it's a gauntlet. And so Oklahoma, even though they didn't have the most impressive record throughout conference play, they got themselves in. They did enough, and then they got hot. That's what it's all about.
Yep. So, again, last night wraps up the 2025-2026 college sports season. Again, we're technically 67 days away from week number 0. So, in the meantime, between now and then, you might want to kill some time by playing a little bit of EA Sports College Football 27, and we're getting close to that release date, and we're getting more information coming out about the game, including the toughest places to play. We got a top 10 ranking, but we also have 11 through 20 as well. Carolina Williams-Brice Stadium, number 16. I don't remember exactly where they've been in the prior 2 games, but I feel like it's somewhere around that, like, 12th to 15th, always kind of consistently there. Now, like, look, if Carolina was coming off of a better season last year, that would probably help them out a lot. But 16th off a 4-8 season, and look, we know from being out there every single weekend how raucous and rowdy Williams Brice Stadium is. I think that's respectable.
It is, and like in some way, I look at this list and, maybe I've got some issues. Like I look at number 15, Husky Stadium in Washington. I've never been there. I've seen it on TV, kind of. Not a lot. I don't see it as much as I see a lot of these other stadiums. I don't watch a lot of Washington football, to be honest with you.
Sure.
I think Williams Brice is probably ahead of Husky Stadium. Is there a little bit of, they just went 4-8, the wind's out of the sails a little bit? I mean, maybe. But, like, trying to be objective here, like, a lot of these places are really hard places to play, And even though, Clemson comes in Memorial Stadium number 9. Last year, they weren't as good at home as they have been, but for a stretch there, they didn't really lose at home.
Yep.
Remember South Carolina went down there and broke their, 40 game home winning streak.
Yep.
So the proof's in the pudding that they've been pretty good there. Then you look at, like, I have been to a night game at Tiger Stadium at LSU. I will agree. I have not been to all the places on this list, and a lot of the places I've been, like I've been to Georgia, I've been to Alabama for a day game, I've been to the Swamp for a day game. It was kind of during a down period. I've been to Neyland Stadium at night, again, kind of a down period. Kyle Field is incredible. I haven't been to Columbus, Ohio. Tiger Stadium, Death Valley West, Midwest out there in LSU, like that's a tough place to play. But yeah, I think respectable, and maybe, by the time college football 2028 rolls around, if you can crack the top 10, if you're South Carolina in this list, that it's just a video game, it doesn't really matter.
Sure,
Shouldn't get too mad.
It's off-season fodder.
Yeah, you can't get too mad.
But I do think it's funny because, again, anytime you put a list out like this, not everybody's going to be completely satisfied. Hey, we should be above them, or they should be behind us, or something along those lines. But like Tiger Stadium is so funny because it's just kind of universally accepted. Like, yeah, it's probably number 1. Like you can be the biggest Alabama or Ole Miss fan or whatever it may be, but you'd still be like, yeah, that's probably should be perennially number 1 every single year.
Well, I went there in 2012 for the South Carolina LSU game. Carolina lost narrowly, I think, by 2. One of the games that kept them out of, playing in Atlanta and potentially for that team was good enough to go play for a national championship. Like, that team was that good, I think. Certainly they were good enough to play for an SEC title. And, it's funny because Les Miles was the coach at the time, and we had an LSU guy and his son sitting in front of us, and they were, like, complaining the whole time about Les Miles. So this wasn't at, like, peak excitement level even for LSU. Still a really good team. It was electric. I mean, it just night game there. It was something else. But, I've had similar experiences sitting in the stands at Williams Brice. You're going, wow, this is incredible.
Out of all, because again, you mentioned you've been to multiple ones. I've only been to Williams Brice Stadium and Sanford. Is there like top of your list? Okay, if I get my option, this is where I would definitely go.
Just like I get to pick an away game.
Yeah, you get to pick whatever game you want.
I'll tell you another one that was really awesome, and it was kind of one of those situations where it was peak program powers.
Yeah.
But Auburn, they had Cam Newton as the team that ended up, winning the national title. Carolina saw him twice, but I went to the game at Auburn. It was a night game. The Eagle flying around. It was a great game, I don't know if that would be the one, but I would, we still talk about that Auburn trip. I mean, that was that was 2010. That was a long time. It was over 15 years ago.
Yep.
But cool campus, great stadium, great atmosphere. I think that is one of the tops for me. Tiger Stadium was awesome. That might be, the top. But kind of picking a not a non-SEC, like a non-LSU, I might go Auburn. I don't know if I'd go, like, right now, the atmosphere might not be as great as it was then, obviously, but that was a really cool one.
I think Autzen would be fun to go to. It's just something different completely different coast, technically in the Big Ten now, obviously, but like, that's a different fan base, that it does its own thing out there in the Pacific Northwest. Obviously, you get a different just environment in general for where the school is located and the people and all that kind of stuff. I think, and watching Oregon games on TV and stuff like that, it definitely looks like a tough place to play, but probably would be a lot of fun to visit at some point.
Yeah, and I should pick one that I haven't actually been to. I've been to all the SEC stadiums aside from Texas. I've seen their stadium, haven't been to a game there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would go, like, on my list that I would like to see one day. I would love to see Ohio State, love to see Michigan. When we visited Ann Arbor, I saw the stadium. Obviously, there wasn't a game going on, but those would be cool. I mean, Penn State for a whiteout would be awesome. And Notre Dame too. Like, I've always kind of, hey, if Carolina ever play, that'll probably never happen now with our current state of college athletics. I don't know if we'll ever get a home and home between South Carolina and Notre Dame. But if we did, we've even talked about that. My wife and I, like, if they ever played, if we get a chance to go to Notre Dame, we're going.
And that is kind of surprising. Notre Dame's all the way down at 20. I figured. I figured oh, that's definitely like top 15 at the very least.
I'm telling you, I was surprised by, and how funny is it, like, Indiana's up there now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where would they have been 3 years ago?
The hundreds.
Yeah, in the hundreds. But I'm telling you, I was surprised at Washington being number 15. Is there something I don't know about?
I know. And
is that just a sneaky tough place to play?
Terry's told me, because he's worked out in Seattle before, he's like, they care about their college football up there. Again, you may not think about it. You think of Seattle as more like a pro sports town, but he's like, they get up for Husky football up there.
Okay.
So
I'm just not as familiar. I mean, I'm a little naive to it. I just saw them at 15 and got, like you said, Notre Dame, some other schools behind them. It was just kind of weird to me.
Yeah, little surprising there for sure. Speaking of surprising, the news about Dusty May leaving Michigan to go join the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA took the entire sports world by surprise yesterday. What did he have to say recently on a podcast about maybe why he decided to make the decision that he did? Let's hear that coming up next. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. Tyler Head and Chris Clark on your Tuesday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. It's our head Chris Clark along with you here on your Tuesday on the Game. Surprising headline popped up around this time yesterday. Dusty May, fresh off of winning a national championship at the University of Michigan. Well, he's heading to the NBA. He's going to be the new head coach for the Dallas Mavericks. We'll get the opportunity to work with, obviously, young superstar in Cooper Flagg. And, they got their draft coming up tonight, so they obviously needed to make a hire and needed to make one fast. But very shocking to some that he would up and leave college basketball a full 2 months after winning the national championship. But a lot of speculation out there that maybe he had been frustrated with the direction that coaching and being a coach in college sports had been heading for a while. In fact, last week he was on Jeff Goodman's Field of 68 podcast and expressed said frustration just days before taking the Mavericks job.
Yeah, obviously, the frustration is there because you need multi-year contracts. You need, if we're gonna, in my opinion, if we're gonna sign a player from a mid-major, we should pay some form of buyout and compensation, which we kind of do now with money games. But the thing that frustrates me is even every time there seems to be a solution to, I guess, solve one of the biggest problems, then some of the more well-known coaches come out and say that affects them in a negative way. And there's a give and take with everything. There's going to be some negative, it's going to have a negative impact on someone. But I think rarely do we look at what's best for the enterprise of college basketball, what's best for the whole, instead of looking at it, what's best for my calendar. I mean, it's even with the NBA stuff, when you talk about, let's say players don't get drafted and they're able to go back to college, that is a horrible, horrible rule for head coaches, for myself. But everyone other than me, I think it's great if the players don't get drafted, they don't go high, they can come back and make the sport better. It's better for them, obviously, to be back on a college campus, growing and developing and making and being compensated well. And it's better for the fans. It's literally better for everyone except the college coaches who have to spend time recruiting, and then it impacts their decision on their rosters. So we obviously make decisions based on what's best for us. And so that's the most difficult part. I think if we all just took a step back and said, is this decision best for the enterprise of college basketball, for the students, for the game, and for our profession going forward, let's do it. If it's not, then we don't, as opposed to just sitting here saying, well, that's not going to be good for us at Michigan, so I don't support it.
And look, we've heard this from basketball coaches, football coaches, baseball coaches. A lot of these coaches very frustrated with the processes they have to go through to do their jobs at this point, and a lot of it takes away from just straight up coaching ball, which he'll now get the opportunity to do in the NBA. Doesn't have to worry about NAL, doesn't have to worry about the portal and stuff like that. You have your team, they're all paid accordingly. There's a CBA in place for the NBA and all that kind of stuff, and you just get to go out there and coach ball, which Dusty May seems like he very much wanted to do, which is why he took this job.
Interesting, and I'm going to circle back to May, I promise, but it did dawn on me that, will this be more of a trend where a lot of NBA coaches get recycled?
Mm-hmm.
Mike Brown, who just won with the Knicks, has been, fired as a coach before. He coached LeBron. Will they go more this direction of, hey, if we can find a really, really good coach who we think fits in the NBA, now's the time to strike, because there are some guys like Dusty May who are looking to make that jump for all the reasons that he just laid out. Wes and I, we were at camp the other day, and we were talking to a coach who's been at the high school level, who's been at the college level for football, but still, a lot of the same issues apply. And he just mentioned, we were going through all the problems, roster management, NIL, and portal, and all those things. And this is why, he basically said, this is why you're seeing some college coaches even jump back to high school, or a lot of college coaches looking to go to the NFL. Interestingly, the Mavericks, according to reports, tried to hire John Shire from Duke.
Right.
And he turned it down. Maybe a different situation. That's his alma mater. I get it. But for Dusty May, are we now surprised hearing about this, given the comments that you just played that he made not long before he got the job? No, not at all. And, look at this guy's resume. He made a meteoric rise. He took Florida Atlantic to the Final Four in the 2022-23 season, got the Michigan job 2 years this past year, won the national title. So, I think while John Shire turned it down, this is probably a situation where if other college coaches actually have the opportunity to jump, they're probably looking to jump. Tyler, has his salary been reported yet for the Mavericks?
I don't believe so. Let me see.
I don't think so. Now, his deal in Michigan was certainly nice. It was a 5-year deal, more than $25 million. So he's making over, $5 million a year. But I would imagine, that he's going to make a lot more.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking over a list. I mean, Steve Kerr with the Warriors is making $17.5 million. Spoelstra, $15 million. I mean, there's guys are making a lot of money.
Yeah.
In the league as head coaches. So, to your point, he'll probably get himself a raise. And it's probably more volatile.
Mm-hmm.
He could go to the Mavericks and have a subpar season or two, and he's out the door.
Sure.
Somebody will hire Dusty May.
Oh, yeah. No,
he can go right back to college. He might even get another NBA job.
Yeah, he's got that ticket in his back pocket. If he ever really wants to come back to college, or again, the NBA chews up and spits him out, he'll get another college job probably pretty quickly. And again, it's interesting because this is the guy at the top of the mountain right now, or at least won the national championship. Michigan does very well when it comes to resources in NIL, and he was set up to have sustained success going forward as long as he wanted to be there, right? And for him to be one of those coaches that said, you know what, this ain't fun, I'm not enjoying this, I just want to coach ball, let me go to the NBA where I can do that, is significant and interesting. And bringing it back locally here, Mike Boynton is now the interim head coach, taking over for the departing Dusty May. Now, it's interesting, they're only giving him the interim tag. They'll probably continue to look for a head coach, but having the assistant that can keep the roster together and obviously was in, recruiting the guys out of the portal and that kind of stuff makes a lot of sense. And this will be his second go as a head coach after he had, less than stellar results in a couple years at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, one of the guys that's been thrown around a lot for this job is Josh Schertz, who's at St. Louis.
Yep.
Very close friend of Dusty May, runs a similar system. He's kind of a close confidant. So he's a guy, I would imagine they're going to take a heavy look outside.
Sure.
But we'll see. I wonder, Tyler, not saying this will happen, I kind of wonder if Michigan would take a swing at, just a big-time name, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because they've been able to raise their profile, a lot. They could go hire, they could give Boynton the job. They could go hire Josh Schertz.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if they kind of got an ace in their back pocket. How appealing is this job? Obviously, it's paying pretty well. They just won a national title. Dusty May's kind of rebuilt that program to where it's very attractive. So we'll see. But, yeah, I think it was a move that I don't think this thing had really been talked about a lot. Sometimes there's a lead up where, remember when Dan Hurley was getting turned around for the Lakers job?
Yeah.
A long process, back and forth, lots of reporting. This one was just, from what I saw, here it is.
Yeah, it happened.
It just happened.
Yeah.
And obviously there were some things happening behind the scenes, and somehow those got kept quiet. But I don't think there was any, sometimes with the Hurley thing, my guess is that there was a little bit of hey, UConn, how about a new contract? Yeah, that was probably part of it. I think
Sure.
Dusty May was just hey, I don't know if he sought the job first or they sought him out, but I think it was just kind of a no posturing. Let's just make this happen. And again, given the comments that he just made and just the state of college basketball, I mean, in particular college basketball, right?
Yeah.
The numbers are getting higher and higher. We just saw this recruiting cycle. The numbers are insane for NIL. The thing that really kind of stuck with him there was just guys who were pro players being able to go play
Yep.
in college basketball. And that's something we're not seeing that at the college football level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? We're not yet. Maybe we will. So just an interesting move, and I'm fascinated to see how he'll do.
So if Dusty May can walk away from college basketball fresh off winning a national championship, what other notable coaches might decide to do the same thing? We'll discuss that coming up next. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing on your Tuesday on the Game.
All right, everybody, let's tell you about our friends over at Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. Every Tuesday and Thursday, as you know, the presenting sponsor here of the Garnet Trust Hour here on the game. That's KrantzCooling.com, Krantz, cooling with a K, KrantzCooling.com. You can go there to learn more about their services. You can even text them from there, schedule an appointment directly from their website. And, of course, they can take care of any of your HVAC and now even your plumbing needs. Go check out their financing options and all their services on KrantzCooling.com. They've been to my home. They've been to Wes Mitchell's home, not only for heating and air issues and installations and repairs, but also for plumbing. Took care of something on the plumbing front at Wes's home since 1983. They've been providing commercial and residential HVAC services. You can now get that same great service with your plumbing needs. So no matter what you need, HVAC, plumbing, KrantzCooling.com is where you can go to learn more.
Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. Tyra Chris Clark along with you here on your Tuesday on the game. Again, just reacting to the news of Dusty May departing Michigan, fresh off a national championship, to go coach the Dallas Mavericks. And Cooper Flagg, NBA draft coming up tonight, by the way. Believe the Mavs have the 9th pick. So, opportunity for him.
9th and 30th, I think.
Yes, an opportunity for him to actually draft some of his Michigan players that he just won a championship with, which would be really funny. But
he's
again,
like, this will make you stay.
Yeah,
you can't transfer. You're gonna have a contract, multi-year.
Exactly. So again, we talked about his frustrations and talking about on the Field of 68 podcast with how things are that ultimately kind of led to this decision being made. So I'm gonna throw some names at you of current successful college coaches. You tell me if you think that person is going to be coaching in college in 10 years or not. Not coaching in general, just coaching in college a decade from now. Ready?
Ready.
Kirby Smart. He'd be about 60 by then, I think.
I had my mind on basketball coaches.
There'll be some basketball coaches.
Okay, this is any. 10 years is he coaching in college? You know what? Yeah, I think so. I mean, Kirby's at his alma mater. Part of me's wondered that. You know, he's kind of a NFL mindset kind of guy.
Sure.
And schematically, I think. But he's at his alma mater. I do think that Kirby likes the ability to control his own program, right? When you're the head coach, you can set everything. This is how we're recruiting. You're not you might have a general manager, but I can't imagine that the University of Georgia with Kirby Smart's ever going to have a setup where you see this actually at some schools. The GM reports to the AD or the board.
Yeah.
Kirby Smart runs his program. He's also got and now this is a way different time, obviously, but he's close with Nick Saban, obviously.
Sure.
Saban can speak to hey, I did the NFL thing. It didn't work.
Right.
Here's why. Now, obviously, college sports have changed so much in that time that it probably makes everybody a little bit more conducive to saying, I'm getting out. You know, I even think about Will Muschamp. He's close with Kirby Smart. Worked for him at Georgia for a while before he moved to Texas. Muschamp was kind of out of the game for a while. And I really think some of that was just like dealing with all the stuff right now, all the junk in college football. But look where he is now. He's back in. He's on-field coach for Texas. So that's my guy. What do you think, by the way? Yeah,
I'd probably say so. He definitely hasn't made there, and having already won the national championships, they're not running him out of town anytime soon. He's got a nice mansion off Millage. His kids have grown up there. Mary Beth, his wife, went to school there as well. So I think it's a place that he retires there, right? Like when he decides he's done, he'll retire there, and that'll be that.
Yeah.
How about Ryan Day at Ohio State?
Good one. 10 years. I am going to say, no.
Okay.
He gets the NFL opportunity at some point.
Really?
You know, you look at, that's another one where he's going to have some insights because being a Chip Kelly guy, Chip went from college to the NFL, back to college, and from some things that we heard actually pretty recently on Kelly, he kind of got back to I just want to coach ball thing.
Yeah, which is why
not even going to be a head coach.
Left UCLA to go be Ohio State's offensive coordinator a couple years ago.
That's right. And so Ryan Day, in some ways, had a little bit of a similar path to Kelly. He's been a position coach in the NFL.
Yep.
Under Chip Kelly, quarterbacks coach for the Eagles and for the 49ers. I don't really have any like intel. It's more of a feel. I wouldn't be surprised either. You know, he might still be at Ohio State in 10 years or somewhere else. But I'm going to say he gets an NFL opportunity and takes it.
All right, go to college basketball now. How about Dan Hurley?
That was tough to figure out. Did Hurley, you know, I know what was reported, and it's still being reported. I mean, I saw some stuff in some of the Dusty May pieces about Dan Hurley, quote unquote, turning down the Lakers. Did he actually turn them down? Was he the guy? Was that a little bit more of media, you know, stuff, you know, designed to make him look even better than he is, and he's really, really good.
Sure.
I don't know. Dan Hurley is another one where I think anybody who's seen him or watched him talk, he seems like, and I really don't mean this negatively, a control freak.
Yeah.
I think he likes to run his own program, and so going and having, okay, now you got an owner. Not that he doesn't have a boss at UConn. He's got a school president. He's got an AD. I think he'll have plenty of opportunities to do it.
Yeah.
And he's complained, if that's the right word, a good bit about the state of recruiting in college basketball too. I think he's going to be watching how Dusty May does, actually, with the Mavericks. This actually has not happened a lot lately.
Right.
John Beilein got a chance. Didn't last very long with the Cavs. I'm going to say Hurley is still there.
Okay.
I think he'll have a lot of opportunities, and I'm kind of 50-50 on it, but that's my guess.
How about John Shire? Again, who was apparently offered the Mavs job multiple times before they moved on to Dusty May. Yeah,
and that's the thing. So with the Mavs, it's like Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
Who you know.
Right.
9th pick, 30th pick. It's been a good organization, good place to live, from my standpoint, all that. If he turned it down now, I mean, what job would he be waiting on?
I don't know.
In the NBA.
I mean, if the theoretical Lakers job ever came open, that's always going to be attractive to people. You just don't know what the timeline on that is. But I think, much like we said with Kirby Smart, I think the alumni thing matters a lot. And look, John Shire's going to end up winning national championships. You kind of fall into it at a place like Duke, whether you're the best coach or not. They just kind of happen. So he's going to get his, and I think as long as he's consistent, which he has been so far, they'll be fine with him, right? They're not going to be ready to run him out of town. So I don't think that pressure is going to be there. Could you try it? Maybe, but I would venture towards, probably not.
Yeah, I mean, he's from Illinois. What if the Chicago Bulls come calling one day?
Maybe.
Maybe. But I tend to think he's still there also.
Yeah.
As long as, like you said, he's consistent, he's winning. He already turned down a job. And so did apparently Hurley, like we were just saying. So I think with Shire, it's even a little bit more different, because he's at his alma mater. I tend to think he'll still be in the college game.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. But, fun little exercise there because, again, a lot of coaches outwardly expressing their frustrations with how things are structured. And, again, there seems to be no solution on the horizon anytime soon. So we'll see what happens. But, again, Dusty May heading off to the NBA with the Dallas Mavericks. You ever get a piece of information put down wrong for your profile at your job or something along those lines? What if that incorrect piece of information persists over years? That's what happened to one NFL player. We'll tell you about that coming up next. It is the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. Tyler Reed and Chris Clark on your Tuesday on the Game.
I'm 24, by the way. I've seen that. Yeah, I'm 24.
Welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. Tyler Head, Chris Clark along with you, wrapping up hour number 1 here on your Tuesday on the game. That the voice you just heard a moment ago. I'll play it for you again in case you missed it because it was kind of quick.
I'm 24, by the way. I've seen that. Yeah, I'm 24.
That is Sauce Gardner, NFL defensive back, getting set to go into, is it his 4th year, 5th year, something along those lines. Let's see. Okay, so he's with the Bengals now, but yeah, this is year number 6 for him, or 5 for him in the NFL. Rookie drafted by the Jets back in 2022. And for the entire time that he's been in the NFL, people have been incorrect about his birthday. They had listed on the Colts website, the NFL website, and all that kind of stuff that he was born on August 31st, 2000, which currently would make him 25 years old. The other day, he informed media, I guess, as this question came up, he's actually 24. So this whole time we've been thinking Sauce Gardner is a year older than he really is. How does this kind of stuff happen? How does that get through the cracks? I can't help but wonder.
You know, the thing that is really weird. Thing that I thought about is names. So there's some stuff that's been coming out in the last, I don't know, couple years with a lot of very prominent players being like, y'all might pronounce my name wrong.
Well, Travis, what
Kelce.
we know is ETN is one of them.
Yeah, Travis Etienne, actually Achan.
Yep.
And Devon Achane, who played at A&M, now with Miami Dolphins. Apparently his name is actually pronounced exactly like Travis Etienne / Achan.
Yeah.
Devon Achan. Bijan instead of Bijan Robinson
Yes.
for the Falcons. Did you know that one? Being a Falcons fan? You're on top of that?
I've always called him Bijan.
Yep.
But he clarified it as Bijan.
Bijan. Yeah, emphasis on the Jean. The Travis Kelce one, I had missed out on until I was just looking. They just rolled with it, though. They're like, yeah. That's fine.
I heard, I think they had their dad on their podcast, and he was talking about whatever job he used to do when they were kids. Maybe it was like contract work or something like that, but a lot of people would call the house to ask for him, hey, we got a job for you or something like that, and they kept saying, is Ed Kelce there? And I think he just stopped correcting them at some point.
Yeah, it gets old.
Yeah, and just like, all right, yeah, I guess I'm Ed Kelce now. And that completely changes everything.
My big thing is I've always I learned very early this was a thing when I would call. First of all, my first name's different than my last. Or obviously, my first name is not the name that I go by. I go by Chris. Chris is my middle name.
Right. I also don't go by my first name.
So that's always kind of a pain. But I've also got, like, your last name's pretty easy.
Sure.
You know, Head. I thought mine was easy. But a lot of times I would get, is that with an E or not? And I'm like, I didn't know. There are a lot of Clarks that have an E on the end. Clarky.
Yeah.
To be the equivalent of Kelce. Let's say, no, it's just Clark.
Yeah.
So now I try to get in front of that usually if I'm, on the phone, customer service or whatever. Anything I have to tell my name, I'm like, Clark. No E. Or Clark. Clark.
Yeah.
I just kind of get out in front of it now.
Sure.
But it would be, if somebody called and said Clarky or something, if they had an E, I probably just wouldn't even correct them.
Yeah. Did you have to consider the fact that you don't go by your first name either? Did you, like, every first day of school, it was always like, no, I go by Chris?
All the time.
And the teacher inevitably wouldn't remember for, like, the first 2 weeks of class.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, yeah, you're Chris, sorry. And they're, like, crossing it out.
Yeah. Some of the teachers would call the roll, and then they would say, what name do you go by?
Yes.
Because even, kids, even if they went by a different name other than their first name or whatever, not necessarily a nickname, but just a shortened name or whatever it was. We had my fifth grade teacher called us by a number, which was kind of dehumanizing, kind of weird.
Okay. What was the point of that?
I don't know. I still don't know. My parents really didn't like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was some kind of ordering, like to try to keep order. Like I was number 8.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
8? You know,
Yeah.
like when she was calling you, a lot of times it was 8. And I'm like, I don't know if she had trouble remembering names or it was some kind of, she was little.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Different. Yeah.
I did have my 6th grade science teacher, who ended up actually being my first wrestling coach. He never, ever started calling me Tyler, despite the fact that I corrected him every day with roll call. No, I go by Tyler. I haven't seen him in years, but like to this day, he'd probably still call me John. He just never.
So in class, he'd be like, he's calling roll. He's like, John. So you would be like,
Yeah,
here
I
is
was like,
Tyler.
Yeah, and eventually I just like, whatever. I'm John in this class now. He called me Jonathan one time, and I'm like, no. That's not even a thing.
We're way off the rails here. I saw this on social.
But again, like for a guy like Sauce Gardner, who's been in the league for years,
Yeah.
for this to be just misinformation for 5 years, and now we're correcting it, like that's crazy to me.
I saw a post on social that went viral on Twitter the other day that blew my mind. It said, it was just you know how some random person that's not even like famous, like they'll just have a viral post,
Sure.
whatever,
Sure.
hits your timeline. This guy was like, I know a guy named Jonathan who goes by Nathan. He's like, I didn't even know you could do that.
I never thought about that.
I didn't.
It's like the Topher thing with Christopher. Topher.
Topher Grace
Yeah.
from that 70s show.
Yeah.
Isn't that guy's name?
It's not as popular.
I've
but you
never
can
heard
do
of
it.
like if normally a dude's named Nathan is just, he's Nathan.
Nathaniel or something
Nathaniel.
like that. Yeah.
But this guy was named Jonathan, goes by
Yeah.
Nathan.
I don't know. Well,
Very creative.
Sauce Gardner got a year younger all of a sudden.
Good for Sauce, I guess.
Like it's one thing for like a high school recruit that, you guys see plenty of them, and maybe not all their information is accurate. Heck, we make jokes about, the Gamecock Online profiles, maybe fudging the numbers a little bit, and we eventually figure it out at pro days and things like that. But the NFL is supposed to be like buttoned up on this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's crazy. Speaking of names, here's one. I was just looking at this, Tyler. You're a Hawks fan, right? Kinda.
Yeah. If I have a team, it's the Hawks.
On3's latest mock draft after the big Giannis trade.
Yep.
By the way, so the Hawks are picking at number 8. Anybody you want them to draft? Anybody you're rooting for? You're probably not going to get AJ DeBansa in that spot unless they trade their entire roster and management team to move up to number 1.
Not
anybody you're rooting for?
Not Darren Peterson. He'll probably
he's gone
number
at that
2.
point. He's probably number 2.
No, nobody in particular. Why do they have a mock draft?
Yeah, they do. On3 has, here's an all-name team, Kingston Flemings from Houston.
Sure.
So,
great.
Yeah. Can shoot 3 a little bit. So, yeah, but DeBansa, I mean, gosh, the Wizards have the number 1 pick.
Mm-hmm.
Forget the Wizards even exist sometimes.
It's funny, when we were in D.C., we went to the Wharf, and they had a big, like, fire pit where you can make s'mores and stuff like that. They had a little trailer, like a Washington Wizards trailer, where you get, like, graham crackers and s'mores and chocolate and stuff like that. I saw literally no other mention of the Wizards in the city my entire time there.
They don't promote it.
Yeah, outside of that little trailer, that was the only reference to the Wizards I saw
weird.
my whole time.
That's not good.
No, it's not.
That's why they got the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
Maybe he can give some excitement. Some AJ DeBansa posters next time you go back to D.C.
We'll see. That'll do it for the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Up next here on the game.
hit to left. Did he do it? Nunez, he did it just like brother. A 3-run homer to put it away. Are you serious?
Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris with you on your Tuesday here on the game. That was the 3-run homer that Kyle Branch hit in the top of the 8th inning last night to give Oklahoma the 13-2 lead at that point in time that they would go on to have the victory with over North Carolina and take their 3rd national championship, first one since 1994, wrap up the college baseball and all of the college sports seasons for the past 2025 and 2026. And unfortunately, not a very competitive game, guys. Oklahoma left no doubt last night at Charles Schwab.
Yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed in 2 ways. One, my prediction was wrong. 2, what we really wanted was a good game, and we just did not get it, man. Kudos to Oklahoma. They were the team of destiny this year. They got in. They found a way to, just get in the tournament, and then they got hot, and the rest is history. But they didn't take an easy path, man. I mean, give them credit. Like, they knocked off some great teams along the way. And it goes to show you, man, baseball's so funny. Like, they're one ball, like, hitting a rock, and Georgia Tech winning in the regional from not even advancing out of that, and then move forward a few weeks, and guess what? You're national champions, and so kudos to them. I mean, I don't really traditionally think of Oklahoma like being a baseball power necessarily, but you look back, man, I mean, South Carolina's run to the College World Series when all this started for them back in 2010, who did they actually lose to at the College World Series? Oklahoma. Who did they knock out at the College World Series in kind of a revenge game? Oklahoma. So this is a program that has been to Omaha and now is in the SEC, where we know baseball is definitely a huge priority. And, man, just goes to show you, though, like I said, to take this locally, find a way to put together a competitive team, get in the tournament each year, and then hope it's your time to get hot.
Yeah, we were talking about that last hour, man. That's all you can do, right? Your 5 SEC teams made it in Omaha. I don't know if any of us, I certainly would not have picked, hey, out of those 5, it's going to be Oklahoma. That's the biggest threat. I would have picked somebody else, Texas, Georgia, whoever, one of the other 4. But to your point, Wes, they built a program that gave them, built a roster that gave them a shot to get to the postseason, and that's what it's all about. Ole Miss several years ago, they kind of limped into the end of the season, but then they just got hot, right? They heated up at the end of the season, played their best baseball, and if you do that at the right time and you're built the right way, you can go win the thing. So that's the whole goal. When you're thinking about South Carolina and their rebuild, I think everybody watching that last night, probably, if you're watching the game, you're sitting there reminiscing a little bit about 2010, 2011, even being there. You didn't win, but being there in 2012, thinking about getting back to Omaha and how can you do it. You don't have to build a program that just runs over everybody. That's really hard to do now in the SEC. Oklahoma had a losing conference record. The league has changed for the better, gotten a lot better, a lot deeper since South Carolina in 2010. That 2010 team was not the favorite to go to Omaha and win, and they were like 22-9 in the league. They were really, really good in the league. It's hard to be that now. Yep. So what can you do to build your roster to give yourself a good chance, a good draw? Like you said, Wes, they didn't even have what you would consider a good draw. They had a difficult path, but they heated up and at the right time and got it done.
Yeah, it's all about playing your best baseball when it matters most, and starting with that regional. They're in Georgia Tech, and they lost to them on that Friday, I believe. So they got down 1 game pretty quickly, and obviously clawed their way back, dominated the Lawrence Regional after that, and again did what they did, over the course of the 2 weeks or so out there in Omaha for the College World Series. And with that, the SEC has 7 straight national championships now with 6 different teams. So as the concern level grows for football, men's basketball, women's basketball, the SEC's not the power that maybe they once were in some of those sports. Baseball keeps on being what SEC baseball is. And Oklahoma, the latest example of, hey, you don't have to be the best team. You just have to be playing your best baseball when it matters. And that's exactly what they did. And I'm sure Greg Sankey can sleep a little bit easier now, knowing they won at least one of the Big Four titles.
Well, I think, some people get irritated by the SEC elitism or homerism with some of the other sports, but I don't think anybody can deny that in baseball, right? And you can just look at it by the simple fact that a team that had a losing conference record just won the entire thing and beat a really, really good UNC program to win the whole thing, beat some other really, really good teams in Omaha on their way to do it. I think everybody recognizes, if you're at least trying to be objective, that it's such a good league. It's so deep. Again, they sent 5 teams to Omaha, that you can just be kind of middle of the pack in terms of your conference record. When you get to Omaha, you're going to be battle tested, at this point. And Oklahoma absolutely was. By the way, guys, Tyler, you mentioned earlier about Branch, Kyle Branch hitting the homer in his last college at bat for Oklahoma. And his brother Colby hit a home run against Oklahoma as a Georgia player in his last at bat. Seems pretty rare.
Yep.
What do y'all think the statistical probability of that is?
Of both brothers hitting a home run in their final college at bat
In Omaha.
In Omaha, I'll say it's never happened before.
I don't know if that's the case. I just did a statistical analysis.
If I didn't see that it happened, I would say it's 0%.
Yeah.
So I had 0.0001.
I gave ChatGPT the parameters.
Okay.
And at first it didn't want to answer, really. And I'm like, no, let's try. So this is obviously very imperfect. It says the odds for a pair of brothers growing up, playing D1 baseball, getting to Omaha, getting to the same College World Series, and then both hitting a homer in their final at bat is about 1 in 278 million.
Wow.
I think that may be too high.
I was about to say, that actually seems high.
Yeah. I mean, that's wild. I don't know if that'll ever be done again. We could say, these two brothers are in Omaha at the same time.
Sure.
Even that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. No, I don't know how that happens.
Yeah. No, it's a cool story. And a lot of cool brother stories when it comes to Oklahoma. The Mercurius brothers, LJ, came in a long relay last night, did a phenomenal job. His brother's on the team. They embraced after the game, or as the game was winding down. And that is kind of a cool thing. And again, I just wanted to be entertained by a good game. I wasn't rooting either way. But when you have a fan base that has the ability to kind of soak it all in, because you're going to win, even with 6 or so outs left to go, it is always fun to kind of watch how the players, the parents, the fans, and all that kind of stuff react, just waiting and waiting for that final pitch, final out, to be able to go out there and celebrate. Because, again, especially once they got up, or really once they got up 8 runs, but especially when they got up by the 11 runs, they would end up winning by, okay, there's really no chance North Carolina comes back in this one.
Yeah, John Mateer appeared to be having a really, really good time in the stands.
Yes, he did.
Was enjoying life.
Apparently,
we'll say.
Skip Johnson told him, now it's your turn.
Well, we'll see about that.
Ooh.
But
The Boz was having fun. He was there.
Eric Church, not so much. Might have to write a song about that experience, I feel like. But, yeah, I mean, it was cool. Like I said, I hate we didn't get a super entertaining game, because it had a great lead up. Like, you were like, okay, these are two teams that are playing very, very well right now. These are two teams that have definitely earned it. And, beautiful weather, great crowd. Like, all the build up was there. But, fortunately, this isn't the WWE, so you don't get to script out a great finish every single time. Sometimes it's the way it goes.
Yeah, so end of the college baseball season and end of the 25-26 college sports season in general. And, hey, next week, July 1st, next Wednesday, we turn over the calendar. We'll obviously have the incoming Nike uniforms for South Carolina athletics, and we'll be, at that point in time, we'll be about 70 or about 60-ish days until kickoff. We're 74 days away today, so be 66? Yeah, 66.
Wow. It'll be here, man. Be here before we know it.
Getting closer. Speaking of 74 days till kickoff, trivia on the other side as we continue on with the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs on your Tuesday on the game.
All right, guys, the countdown to kickoff is on, so you have time, but let's not wait till the last minute before upgrading your home viewing experience for the football season coming up. Hit up our friends at Integrated Media, 803-948-8327, or head on over to integratedmediainc.com for more information about all of their great services for homes around the Midlands. They've been to Chris's. They've been to my home. Let them come to yours as well. And like I said, upgrade that sports viewing experience. That could be as simple as new TV, hanging it on the wall, hiding the wires, surround sound, all the things that go along with that. Or if you want to have that specialized room in your house where, you know, you have the home theater system or the man cave, invite your friends over and watch the game, they can do that for you too. Also, if you want to do outside TV, kind of that whole outside viewing experience, that's something they can do as well. So if any of that sounds of interest to you, hit them up today, integratedmediainc.com or 803-948-8327.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris along with you on your Tuesday, 74 days away from South Carolina kicking off its season against Kent State on September 5th. So still just a little over 2 months until toe meets leather to get your number 6 of the Beamer era underway. All right, Wes, what do you think these 74 days until kickoff trivia pertains to?
Well, I think we're about to announce the college football playoff with that music bringing us back. Like, that's the first thing that comes to mind. I think that's the opening theme there when the guys are about to announce each CFP ranking. 74. Is that Mason Zandy or no?
There's Mason. Yep.
Okay.
And
go ahead.
shout out to our boy John Strickland.
John Strickland.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's him or not, but I just wanted to give him a shout out. Good
Currently,
excuse to-
Josiah Thompson.
So,
Yes.
Question: this Chapin, did he go to Chapin? This Chapin graduate is the tallest offensive line starter in South Carolina history.
Is that
Who
true?
is Mason Zandy?
Is that true?
I mean, he's like 7'4". What is he, 6'9"?
He's certainly one of the tallest.
Chris about to ask ChatGPT again, but
Oh, God, here we go. He's listed at 6'9".
yeah.
I was making sure he was listed.
I mean, I would say yes, he's the tallest starter in program history.
According to Wes.
Yeah, I mean,
Book
look,
it.
6'9". That's something you don't see a lot on a
Probably
football
not too
field.
many
Probably not.
taller than that.
I was
Yeah.
going to say the tallest starter on the O-line, but if that's the case, then that would also almost surely make him the tallest starter at any position.
Yes. I would think so.
Yeah, that's actually a good question, but that is not what the question pertains to, because I would want to verify 100% that he was the tallest ever
Yes.
before asking that question. But I like the way you think.
Thank you.
You want to take a guess, what, Chris?
Nah.
No,
This 74 started at center for the Gamecocks. John
Yeah.
Strickland.
no,
Is that it?
that's
Okay.
not it.
This 74 was partying at a wing eating contest on Saturday.
John Strickland.
John Strickland.
Ah. Is that it?
It's not.
Ah.
It's actually a statistic.
Okay. 70.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're
See,
not
I-
getting this.
I
Probably not.
asked for 74s yesterday, and you guys gave me none. So,
Oh, you have Google.
yeah. Well,
I think I gave you a John Strickland shout out.
you did. You know what? You did give me one,
So you
but
could've-
I decided to go this route
Tyler's
instead.
lying on you.
Sorry about that. The statistic is field goal percentage.
Oh,
What South Carolina kicker finished with a career field goal percentage of 74.1, which is fifth best in program history?
Okay. You know, I randomly.
there's no way you know this.
No, I don't. And I'm not going to say that because every time I say it, I get it wrong.
Yeah.
At one point, I had done some research on, like, how does Alex Herrera stack up.
Oh, yeah.
Remember? And I was looking through, and I was like, oh, well, that guy's, like, a little lower than I thought he would have been and stuff. But I still don't know the answer. I mean, I've got a few candidates in my head. I don't know. Let's just both go with one, and if it's the same, that's fine. If it's different, then obviously
Would
it'll be
you
different.
like a hint?
Yeah, we'll take
okay.
a hint.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's prior to 2010, so nobody in the past 16 years.
Yeah. So I've got my guess. I'm going Ryan Suckup.
Okay.
Was he prior to 2010?
Was he?
Let's see.
Oh, that must not be the answer.
It's not the answer.
Oh, it's prior to 2010.
Wait, what crowd? So Suckup was in the. Okay, yeah, he was in like the, I don't know, 06, 08 class, one of those.
Yeah, Suckup would have been 05 to 08.
Okay, so he was before.
He was before 2010.
Okay,
but
then
he's
I feel
not the answer.
Even though I got it wrong, I feel good about
Well,
my
all right,
guess.
yeah.
Okay.
Because Lanning was after him.
Lanning Spencer?
Lanning, yes. Lanning Spencer was after him. Pride of York Comprehensive High School. Daniel Weaver.
God, I was going to say that one next. Yeah.
Not Daniel Weaver.
That's the only other kicker.
Reed Morton.
Courtney Lovett.
Nope.
We'll just name every kicker.
Hold on. Let's see. What other kickers do you know?
Said Reed.
All right. Hit us
Just give
with
it
it.
to us.
Josh Brown,
Mm.
who would have been right before
Yeah.
Ryan Suckup.
Yep.
74.1 career percentage.
Okay. Had the huge field goal at Tennessee,
Mhm.
2005, 49-yarder. 49.
Hasn't he been a sponsor on the game at times too?
I believe so.
Yeah.
49 yards and 1/8.
We could have implemented that into the
We could have.
little sponsorship in there.
Okay,
All right,
good
cool.
good question, Tyler.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good question, Tyler.
Yeah. I think we all know who number 1 is.
Do we?
Yeah. I thought.
Not
Career
necessarily.
field goal percentage.
Oh, is it Mitch Jeter?
It's Mitch Jeter. Do you know who number 2 is?
Is it Elliott Fry?
It's not.
Is it Parker White?
Right.
Nope. You're going to be shocked by this. It's actually William Joyce. One season, but he made 80% of his field goals.
How many field goals?
Oh, that's a good question.
Couldn't have been that many.
It wasn't a lot.
They didn't try that many. Yeah, there almost should be like a not to discount, no disrespect intended. I feel like there might be a threshold, like you have to kick like I don't know.
Sounds very disrespectful.
15.
So he attempted 15 last year and
Okay,
made
I was
12
gonna
of
say
them.
15 or 20.
Okay.
I wonder what Suckup's percentage was in college.
I feel like Suckups was not as high
It was not.
as you would think it was, considering how long he was in the NFL and how big of a leg he had. Like I feel like the percentage was not
he was
great. Actually.
He was 71%. Actually, his senior year, he was 20 of 30, 66%.
Ooh.
And that's why we were going back, like, when Carolina had some struggles not hitting, 49, 50-yard field goals, it's like, I mean, guys, kickers have gotten better, but these things aren't auto. Like,
Yep.
Parker White, early in his career, now he was getting sent out there for 90-yard field goals a lot of the time. But percentage-wise, like, even some of the guys we consider to be very good, and they were and very consistent, like, they weren't hitting 95% of their field goals, So, not an easy job.
Yeah.
Yeah, suck up 71%.
Yeah. Well,
Interesting.
here's hoping that we have, if it is going to be Upton Beliffant, we have a very successful season this year where he can enter himself in this conversation of
Or
all
Max
time.
Kelly.
Or Max Kelly.
Kelly, whoever it ends up being. Then did they bring in a third kicker too? Or they were talking about bringing in
Yeah,
one.
they brought in a third
They
kicker.
brought in a third kicker. Okay.
Yep.
Whoever ends up kicking.
Mason Love.
Maybe.
Probably not.
Well, as you guys talk about, a lot, and reading through these names here, and Jeter and Parker White and Elliott Fry and all these guys in the past, 10 to 15 years, where you just kind of expect it, like, oh yeah, this guy's gonna make it more often than not, and you can rely on him to nail 45, 50, 55 yarders. It really kind of smacks you in the face when that goes away for a couple seasons. Where again, like percentage wise, Joyce was great last year, but it wasn't somebody that. When Carolina needed to make a 50-yard field goal, I don't even think he attempted one last year. He made 49, okay, but he never attempted anything 50-plus.
Yeah,
and he was 5 of 8
Which is
from
good
40 to
coaching,
49.
That's good coaching.
Yeah.
Don't send your guy out there for 55-yard field goals if it's a low percentage kick.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, in all seriousness, like Parker early in his career, he's attempting these 52, 53-yard field goals like multiple times in a row, I feel like. And lo and behold, hey, when he starts kicking 38-yarders, guess what? He's one of the most accurate kickers in school history. So I think that's, some of that is philosophy. Some of that is like, hey, man, if we're at the 35-yard line, we're just going to go for it. But yeah, some of that also is just like, hey, if we're not comfortable with that, if our kicker's not comfortable with that, don't ask him to do things that he can't do.
Yeah, and something we've talked about a lot. Can you be more consistent? Can you feel like you can go out there and be more consistent in that 40 to 50 something range? That's really at times what has hurt South Carolina. Now Joyce did hit a 49-yarder last year, but between 40 and 49, he was 5 for 8. Notably during the 2024 season, Alex Herrera, who actually did, he made a huge kick at Clemson on the road in 2024. People don't talk, that wasn't that long of a field goal. It was a pressure-packed situation, made the field goal. That's what you want to see. Missed the one that would have tied the game against LSU. Shouldn't have come down to that, but it did. So you'd like to make a kick like that. There was the long one, 50-plus yarder against Alabama on the road in 2024. Again, not a kick you can necessarily go expect to make, but you'd love to make it.
Sure.
Can they get I don't know if they end up comboing it, Wes. Do you have a guy who, hey, this is our long-range guy, this is our short guy? does somebody handle both, all of it? I don't know. But consistency is the thing that they want to see. And I don't think they quite got that yet during the spring, which is another reason, you bring in another guy to come compete, and then you keep the competition. I think it's going to be a big competition throughout summer and preseason. But it's not that they don't have guys who have talent that can, from a leg strength standpoint, can make the kicks. It's just about the consistency.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And if you're gonna have a lot of close games that could go one way or the other, whether you can consistently hit those or not, I think can be the difference in a win or two in a season. And I would also say, like, when you get to that, so the 35-yard line is a 52-yard field goal. When you get to the 35-yard line, are you going for it there because you want to go for it, or are you going for it there because you feel like you have to? I think having a kicker that you feel more comfortable kicking those at least opens up those scenarios where, hey, if it's 4th and short and we're just kind of in the regular flow of the game and you have Lenora Sellers, you're probably going to go for that. But if it's 4th and long and it's a 3-point game or a tie game and you're going, man, I'd like to just take the points here, but we don't feel comfortable with this, that's when you'd love to have that kicker who could go out there and, feel confident in doing that for you.
We'll find out as we get in fall camp in a couple months of who's going to win that kicking battle and be handling those duties for South Carolina this upcoming season. Baseball, very active in the transfer portal as Kevin Schnall continues to build his roster for his inaugural season at South Carolina. We'll talk about the latest and what you need to know coming up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Tuesday on the Game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris with you on your Tuesday here on the game. Kevin Schnall, of course, very busy when it comes to the transfer portal. We'll tell you the latest in just a moment. I didn't get a chance to ask you guys yesterday. I wasn't here last week, obviously. What did you think of his introduction and the helicopter and everything they did over at Founders the prior Friday?
Yeah, I think it's good, man, because I don't think that's necessarily like his MO, his cup of tea. Like I'm sure he wasn't standing on the table being like, "Man, JD, I really feel like you need to helicopter me in for this thing." But he did it because that was what he was asked to do, and I think it was something where if you're Carolina, we've talked about this, guys. You got to do everything you can to recreate some excitement around South Carolina baseball to kind of break what is the status quo right now, kind of just get people back talking about it. And so, yeah, I thought it was like a kind of a clear message of like, hey, things are different around here now. It's a new regime. It's a new staff. And, for it to be at 9 o'clock on a Friday, it was literally like still 95 degrees outside too. It was a good crowd out there. I thought it was pretty cool.
Can we get an answer on something by listener request? Tyler, you had a buy or sell, I think it was.
Yep.
About whether or not Kevin Schnall would hug Cocky.
Yes.
Oh, did we do these?
Well, I don't think we reviewed.
Do we know if he did or not?
Right. I'm asking. Wes, I'm counting on you.
Well, I watched the stream.
Okay.
Chris and I had been at camp all day long. I actually wanted to swing by, but didn't make it over there. I watched as he got out of the helicopter, and I watched as they walked to the stage on the video stream. There was no hug.
Okay.
So
Now,
I'm going to say there's no hug unless there's further evidence to the contrary.
that comes to light.
Yes.
So Katie, of course, took some photos for us. Great photos. He is pictured hugging some students,
Yeah.
and he's holding Sir Big Spur. No photo evidence of a Cocky hug.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think we've got to. And I can't remember. I think I bought that he would hug Cocky. So if
I sold that one.
if you were there, please hit us on the Firehouse Subs text line. Let us know so that you can get me a point that will probably not be awarded. But all we can do is go with the evidence.
Yep.
And we have not seen any.
We would need photographic evidence to submit alongside your text
Or an
message.
eyewitness testimony.
Yes, like, okay, I saw him do it. Here's a photo or whatever. Regardless, that was his proper introduction at the press conference afterwards, which is kind of what I expected. You know, not a lot of long answers, very short, to the point. He's an intense guy, and that's how he's going to coach here at South Carolina. And he's been very active in the transfer portal. Of course, we know he's brought in so many of his former players from Coastal Carolina up until the last couple of days, but then adding some players from elsewhere as well. Got Max Bianchi from USC Upstate, right-handed pitcher, about a week ago. Tyler Pitzer making his return to South Carolina at the end of last week, and as well as the most recent addition being Andrew Costello, a catcher from Wake Forest. Hit 244 this past year. So now starting to branch out a little bit more and find guys in other places.
Well, Costello, nobody needs to get caught up in that batting average. I'm not putting myself in this category of, what do people say nowadays, ball knower. I'm not a ball knower when it comes to college baseball all over, nationally. But the ball knowers say that Andrew Costello is an absolute stud. He was an early enrollee who was playing as a true freshman and was like a top 10 type guy coming out as a true freshman. So it is someone who is just a massive, massive pickup. Like obviously they got the kid from Coastal, Brycey Stepp, who's transferring in at catcher as well. But Costello, from like an upside standpoint, is considered a draft pick type guy. One national account I saw said that Andrew Costello may be the best pickup out of the portal this offseason. Not for South Carolina.
Like anybody.
Of anybody. Like may go down to be that. So I thought that was a mouthful, but also you look at the fact he breaks the glass for you a little bit with Wake Forest transfers. He has a brother who is a good player, and last I checked is not in the portal, but is a starter for Wake Forest in the outfield. And then also you have J.D. Stein, shortstop for Wake Forest, who actually might be on campus right now. He is scheduled to visit South Carolina today, and was a starter for Wake at shortstop, and is a pretty big-time player in his own right. So there's going to be a heavy – if South Carolina gets their way, there will be a heavy Coastal and a heavy Wake Forest influence on this roster.
Well, and if you look, if you want to get caught up in that stat, that batting average, Wes, on the other side, you can get caught up in this one. Currently playing in Cape Cod League. It's hitting .462. So, now, smaller sample size, 8 games, but he's hitting .462. OPS is 1225, 692 slugging percentage. Walked 3 times. He's only struck out once in 26 at bats. Has a homer, has 3 doubles, couple runs driven in. So he's having a really, really good summer. It's a guy from like a batting average standpoint that maybe didn't have what he could be ultimately, but like the tools are there. Big time tools on that kid.
We talk a lot as well about the outgoing players that have not found new homes yet, and a lot of them have. One notable one, of course, being Will Craddock, who really kind of stormed onto the scene as a freshman, especially early in the season. He was visiting this past weekend, so getting to meet Coach Schnall and learn about him for probably the first time there. So it's kind of a wait and see, but obviously that would be one of those guys that people would very much be excited to see him come back if he decides to do that.
Yeah, and Craddock going to check out Georgia and Mississippi State this week. He fully plans to still take those visits, and I imagine we'll just kind of see where things are after that. But we'll either make a final decision at the end of this week or early next week. There had been some positive vibes there in terms of him returning to South Carolina, but I think, dude, if you're taking those visits, then obviously you're still highly considering these other schools as well. So you're not taking those visits for your health, and so we'll see what that ends up looking like. But Craddock, obviously, this kid, you want to talk about upside, like doing what he did even as a freshman, just speaks to what he could be capable of. His final 2 years in Columbia, if that happens. So I think that's the blueprint, though, right? Mm-hmm. If you can put together a team with the right guys returning from South Carolina, even if it's a small kind of faction, the right guys returning, the right guys coming in from Coastal, the right guys coming in from Wake, then really that doesn't put as much pressure on you to go out and get as many of the kids that you just maybe aren't as familiar with. You're kind of taking a little bit of a chance on. We saw last year what it was like building an entire roster with just all random guys from all different backgrounds out of the transfer portal. So maybe you can avoid that. I think you want to build back this locker room. You want to build back this culture. You want to get it back where you need it to be. Now, the one thing I think if you're Schnall, you have to be diligent about, you don't want to create factions. You don't want it to be the Coastal guys. Let's say they add 2 or 3 more Wake players. The Coastal guys, the Wake players, and the Gamecock players. You don't want it to feel like you have these little stables of players. So I think that would be a key culture element to the offseason.
Kevin Schnall continue to build his team for next year. Lamont Paris putting a bow on his this past weekend. We'll discuss that coming up next. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Tuesday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler with Chris wrapping up the hour here on your Tuesday on the game. We talk about Kevin Schnall and building out his roster for baseball. Well, Lamont Paris is done building his as over the weekend South Carolina announced the final 3 members of the 26-27 basketball team. That includes Nasir Hines, transfer from Palm Beach State College, Ford Wilder from Wilson Hall High School, Alton Sumter, and the third foreign professional in Matias Alessanco, coming over.
Good effort.
Yeah, I tried my best. Coming over as well. So, again, 3 international pros there for South Carolina. And now we have a team. This is going to be the team that hopefully brings Carolina back to some kind of prominence in basketball. And we got, 4-ish months to find out what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I also appreciate, guys, the headline being Paris completes the roster. So, this put a – we're not tracking anything anymore. We're not having to keep an eye on would there be more. I appreciate it is officially they're saying, hey, this is the roster. This is what it's going to be. And Lamont Paris actually going to speak to the media tomorrow where he will go over some of these guys. And, I would say, guys, to be fair, the final few additions here that were announced over the weekend really is South Carolina building out the depth of this roster, because you look at Matthias, he has a torn ACL. He's going to redshirt this year. This is a matter of you going out and getting a guy who actually is a really, really good basketball player and trying to get ahead and say, we're able to get this guy on our roster, get him into our program, and hopefully keep him around and let him make a big impact in year 2. Frankly, the other couple of guys are more just filling out the roster, helping you be able to compete in practice, helping you have enough guys for all that. And, I think in terms of impact guys, you got to go back to, the additions of Juan Fernandez, the additions of Alexis Velasquez, Shane Blakeney, Davion Hanna, Camden Heidi. Those are the guys. Corey Mincy. How did we say? Hakub Natchez, I think.
Yep.
I think we looked that up. Wanted to get that right. Jakob.
Yep.
Jakob Natchez. So those are the guys that are going to determine what this season is for South Carolina, I think is the way to say it.
Yeah, that's a good point. We knew that there were going to be some additions, really for depth. That's what we were talking about last week. Hey, there's going to be some more additions to this roster, but the guys who are really going to shape the program for this year on the court in competition are going to be those other guys. Now, I've actually watched some of Alessanco's stuff from overseas. He does, you're right, Wes, has a really good skill set, but he's still, even given that, not going to factor in this year simply because he's going to be recovering. And then the other 2 guys, really kind of call it what it is, are more depth pieces for this year, which are nonetheless important, as you're trying to reshape the program. But for all intents and purposes, the roster in terms of the guys that we're going to see factoring in on the court this year were already in place. But now, you can kind of turn the page. Now that these last 3 guys are in, you kind of know this is what the roster is going to be, and we can start advancing, kind of talking about what kind of impact will they make, how do they stack up versus the other competition. That's kind of hard to do right now, because not only is South Carolina turning over their roster significantly with a lot of new pieces, we can kind of look at them all individually, but how are they all going to fit together? I mean, that's a question. How are they going to fit in Paris' system? And then trying to stack it up to all these other rosters. I mean, it's hard enough to keep up with and analyze one roster here in Columbia. You're trying to do it with all the other SEC programs, in LSU that had significant roster turnover and has a bunch of, international or, former G League players and all that on the roster. It's really tough to do. It makes it hard to predict now.
Without seeing these guys obviously play yet for South Carolina, do we feel better than where we were a year ago roster-wise? Or is the jury still out, in your opinion?
I mean, I think, yes. yes to both. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do think it's a better roster. I think because, one, there's a little bit more balance in the roster, maybe a lot more balance in the roster in terms of having some bigs and some guards that you feel good about, and not just say, like, I think we're all looking at it last year going, oh, man, they've added some pieces if these guys are able to shoot the basketball the way they want them to, but you were going, man, no CMB and no real direct replacement for CMB. Now I think you look at this bunch and you say, all right, they have some guards, some wings, and some big men who can go play the game. I think the addition of Juan Fernandez to kind of put a cherry on it in terms of a guy who can make a lot of plays for you and just obviously is I mean, he's literally a professional. So I think that makes you feel better about this roster than the one last year. Now, the part that the jury is still out on, how do you compare to your peers? We absolutely do not know what that looks like.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, just what I said, like, it's hard to analyze your roster. Then you're trying to stack it up and compare. I mean, that's just so hard to do. You can't look back, and there's a few instances or a few programs you can say, well, they're getting these guys back. This is what those guys did last year. But for the most, I mean, there's never been as much roster turnover as there is now. So I think on paper you feel better because you're bringing in guys with more experience. I think in some cases you're bringing in guys that were even more sought after in the portal than the guys last year. But they still have to fit together. And even if you improve your team, what does that mean in terms of wins, which are the most important thing when you're stacking it up versus, I mean, there's a lot of programs out there in the SEC that on paper improve their program from last year.
Yep.
So how does it stack up?
As Wes mentioned, we'll hear from Laurent Paris tomorrow, breaking these guys down, and we'll certainly discuss that later on in the week as well. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show, myself and Bill Gunner up next on your Tuesday on the Game.